legal changes that were put in place after World War II. But this is in the context of restrictions that had begun against Asians in the 1880s, against everybody else starting in the 1920s. So what do we get? We get the Bracero or farmhand program, which controlled migration from Mexico, which otherwise, much of the U.S. had been Mexico to begin with. There had been generations of migration back and forth across what is now the border between the United States and Mexico. From 1942 to 1964, we had the Bracero program. Sorry for butchering the Spanish, it was not one of my languages. The workers from Mexico who came in under the Bracero program, who were farmhands, they were considered to be foreign laborers. They were not immigrants. So they were allowed to come into the United States outside of any quota, but they were not given any permanent residency status. Guest worker program is basically what it is. So at the time, we didn't have the phrase guest worker program, but it's essentially a guest worker program for agricultural workers from Mexico to work in ag in the United States. There's a lot that's been written about the Bracero program. There's a lot that's still being debated about the Bracero program. We're not going to get into that. The Braceros had short-term contracts that were supposed to cover their wages and living arrangements. There's certainly a lot of evidence now that these contracts were honored only, let's say, sporadically, and that there were plenty of individuals who came in under the Bracero programs who had these contracts in place, but the contracts were not honored. All right, what do we get next? 1940s and 1950s. In 1943, the Asian Exclusion Act of 1882 was ended in 1943. However, what's the quota that's given to the countries in Asia? 100 people per year. So the number of people who could migrate from China to the United States at the end of the Asian Exclusion Act was 100 per year. The number who could migrate from Japan to the United States was 100 people per year. There's more than 100 people in this class. 1952 was a major immigration reform. In 1952, the immigration reform retained those national origins quotas. So there was still this many from Sweden, this many from Norway, this many from China, this many from, and so on and so forth. They did update the base, and so from the 1890 census to the 1920 census, it did increase, therefore, the quotas for some countries, but it was still the case that 85% of the quotas, of the slots that were available, went to individuals from Northern and Western Europe. They said the goal was to build a skilled domestic labor force, that they wanted to encourage people to migrate to the United States who had skills to help to build a skilled domestic labor force. 1965, this is the biggie. The big revision is the 1965 Immigration Act. It gets rid of those national origins quotas, so there's no longer different quotas for different countries. It established overall quotas by hemisphere, so the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere, so the Americas, Europe, well, Pacific Rim and Europe. 170,000 per year from the Eastern Hemisphere, 120,000 per year from the Western Hemisphere. Established annual quotas for each country within the Eastern Hemisphere, so Europe, basically, of 20,000 per country, and said that family unification was not subject to the quota. So if you already had family who had migrated here, grandparent, no, that wouldn't work very well, would it? Cousin, uncle, something along those lines, then they could bring in family members into the United States who were not counted against the quota. So family unification was not subject to a quota. The quotas applied to individuals who were migrating to the United States who were not unifying with family members who were already here. They argued the goal was to support family unity, to encourage assimilation of migrants. When this bill was passed in 1965, which incidentally is the same year as the Medicare and Medicaid is put into place as part of the years of the war on poverty, the argument at the time to get this passed was not to worry, all of you Americans who are worried about immigrants, not to worry, this will not change the face of America. That the 1965 Immigration Act may lead to a small increase, they said, may lead to a small increase in immigration, but it will not radically change the number of people who are in the United States, nor the makeup of immigrants. That turned out not to be true. And I didn't put the table, I put the table in your handout, but I didn't put it on the slide because I was running out of time. But you can see from table 2 in the handout for this week, the change in the source of immigrants, compare the 1960s with the 1990s, or I had to split the table down to 2, this most recent decade, and you can see the big shift, in where migrants are coming from. Next one, 1986 Immigration Reform and Control Act. This is the next big thing, is the 1986 Immigration Reform and Control Act. The concern by 1986 was undocumented immigration. Once you have a system that says some people are allowed in and some people are not, then you have this issue of documented and undocumented. We didn't have documented and undocumented before. We had rules that some people could come in and some people couldn't. 1842, there wasn't documented and undocumented. There was just who got here. But once you have rules that say yes and no, then you have documented and undocumented. So the goal of the 1986 Immigration Reform and Control Act was to slow undocumented immigration. This is when the law was passed that made it illegal for employers to hire undocumented workers. So before 1986, there was no law in the books that prevented an employer from hiring somebody who didn't have papers. Nobody ever asked about papers. So the whole, if you filled out an I-9 form to show that you have the legal right to work in the United States, the one that you have to produce something that indicates you either were born here or have the right kind of visa, that I-9 form did not exist before 1986. You didn't have to show where you were, nobody cared where you were born. There was an amnesty part to the 1986 Immigration Act, which offered legal status to those who've been in the U.S. without papers since 1982. So if you were in the U.S. as an undocumented worker and you could demonstrate that you had been here before, at least 4 years before this thing was passed, so you couldn't flood the gates and come in 1985, but in anticipation. But if you had been in the United States before January 1st, 1982, or since January 1st, 1982, you could get legal status. So the conversion for a lot of people into having papers. And it created the equivalent of a guest worker program for farm workers. So it's no longer called the Bracero program, but once again, we're going to let farm workers, people who are willing to pick the crops, come into the United States. They can get in, they get temporary visas. We're not going to give them permanent residency status. And so it's not called the Bracero program, but it sure smells and tastes like the Bracero program. Next big one, 1990 Immigration Act. 1990 Immigration Act finally increased those quotas. Those quotas of 120 and 170,000 per year, those were still in place until 1990. That number didn't change until 1990. So part of the problem that people felt the United States was facing was that as the population of the United States grew, there had been no increase in the number of people who were allowed to migrate into the United States. And so the share, immigration as a share of the population by necessity was going to be going down. And so there was an increase in the number of legal slots, quota slots, to 675,000 per year. Again, family members are not counted against that total. So if you're here in the United States legally, you can bring in family members, and that's not counted against the 675,000 per year. Preferences are given to skilled labor and given to people with money. So if you have $500,000 and you're willing to start a company in the United States, you can come in the United States. So if you are a really ambitious but young person with no family here, you don't get the same preferences. So the preferences for skilled laborers, doctors, and for people who have money. I'm just saying the facts. Goal was family reunification and also increasing the supply of skilled labor. There has not been any major immigration reform since then. So 1990, which is, 23 years ago, was the last major immigration reform. So when they're talking about immigration reform now, it's the first major bill since 1990. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Yes, good. Good, we have time. All right, here's what we're going to do. I don't know how this is going to work, but I thought it would be kind of fun. I'm going to put you in your groups, and because it may not work for everybody to come down to the board. You may want to appoint somebody from your group to come down to the board. And what we're going to do is, here, I'll show you in a minute. So here's the timeline. And there's lots of chalk up here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put on the timeline, up and above and below the timeline, what you know of your family history. Okay? So for instance, right? So I know that on the Olney side, my mom did genealogy before she died. I know on the Olney side that we can trace the Olney line back to the colonial times. And they came from England. And so I'm going to put England here, because that's the source of the relatives that came during colonial times. I also know that she did the genealogy, and we can trace another part of the family that came from Germany back to like wrong place. Back to, if you don't know exactly, take it. Back to 1856. And then I know that my grandmother came from Sweden in the 1880s. So I'll put Sweden up here. Okay? Got the idea? If your family was here before Columbus, that's pre-Columbian. So feel free to write down what tribe or nation you're from. If you did not come here by choice, let's maybe put a box around that. If your descendants, not you, but if your family was brought here, for instance, as slaves, put a box around it. So that's the first task, is to figure this out. That's why I said in your groups you may want to have somebody who writes it all down, as opposed to all 100 of you coming down at once. And then in your groups, I want you also to talk about what you know about why your family came to the United States. Now some of you like Peter are here as international students, and so I put a little box over there for you, Peter, where you get to put international students. All right? Got the idea? Cool. All right, usual groups. So along the rows on the edges, first 4 or so seats, depending on how friends are broken up. Next 4 or so seats, depending on how you're broken up. Last 4 or so seats, groups along the rows. You like this? If your country's already up there, write it again, because we want to see the preponderance. Right, yeah. So, give or take, probably before the Civil War. Yeah.
Ireland currently has 4.5 million citizens, but before the Halo family, 8 million.
Yeah. Yep. Write it again, because we want to see the preponderance. Go ahead. Okay. The purple? Yeah. You know, it's a lavender thing. I am. All right, cool. Now if I'm really clever, I'll figure out how to post those. Oh, add another one. Cool.
I didn't realize you're adding like non-immigration stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Yeah. All right, so what do we got? I think I see the national patterns reflected on the board. What do you think? So I see 3, Cherokee, and colonial England, and a lot of England and Germany. That makes a lot of sense. And before the Civil War, a lot of Ireland and Germany, and what's France and Scotland? 1 T in Scotland. Only 1 T, no 2 T's, just 1 T in Scotland. Don't tell your great-grandmother. No, that's only 1 T. Yeah. The Scott people are also only 1 T. Okay, after the Civil War, but before all the restrictions, France and Germany and Ireland and Sweden and China and Poland and Italy and Norway and Lithuania and Germany and Italy and Croatia and Germany and Mexico and Russia and England and Belarus. Sort of spreading out, right? So getting some more Northern and Eastern Europe in there. And then in the 20s, and not very much in the 30s, I grouped 20s and 40s. Italy, China, so a little bit from China, England, Serbia, Chile, Norway, Austria, Hungary, Italy. And then in the 50s, so once some of these restrictions had been removed, but before the big reform, Puerto Rico, England, Hungary, Canada, Cuba, Greece, Hungary, and the Philippines. And then look at what happens once the big immigration reform happens in 1965. Look at that. There we are. Germany, Bolivia, Japan, Jamaica, Taiwan, Pakistan, Korea, China, Taiwan, England, Egypt, India, Burma, Spain, China, Taiwan, Russia, Israel, Ukraine, India, Philippines, Korea, Israel. How do I say it? Where are you? Eritrea, is that you? Eritrea? Russia, China, Russia, Vietnam, India, Pakistan, Japan, and then on the right we have our visiting international students. Not visiting, our international students. Or some are visiting for a year, semester, and some are just international students. Yeah. There we are. I mean, that's the immigration reform, right? And that's the difference it made. That this room is so different than this room would have been. This very room, right? People taught in this very room. Look at the seats, people. People taught in this very room 50 years ago, right? And how different this class would have been 50 years ago. Because of the tremendous effect the 1965 reform had on the patterns of migration into the United States. We're out of time. Did you get a chance to talk about what you know about why your family came? Hold those thoughts for Tuesday. There's a lot to do on Tuesday. We'll get it all done.